There comes a moment when holding on stops feeling like love and starts feeling like self-betrayal. You keep hoping he'll change, that maybe this time he'll see your worth, but deep down, you already know he won't. The truth is, you're not losing him by letting go, you're freeing yourself from the weight of waiting. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do isn't to keep fighting for someone else, it's to finally start choosing peace for yourself. You can't begin to heal when your heart is still reaching backward. Letting go isn't just about deciding to move on, it's about making peace with the part of you that keeps wanting to look back. When someone has been such a big part of your life, it's natural to feel the pull. You check their profile, you replay the memories, you wonder if they miss you, if they've changed, or if they ever really cared. But every time you do that, you're reattaching yourself to the very pain you're trying to recover from. Healing doesn't happen while your energy is still tied to someone who's no longer choosing you. It happens when you stop feeding what's gone and start feeding your peace. We convince ourselves that holding on somehow means we're still connected. We think that if we don't let go completely, it means the story isn't over, that maybe there's still a chance, still something to save. But what if the story isn't meant to continue? What if it's meant to teach you something about yourself, about love, about strength? Healing starts when you stop treating what broke you as your comfort zone, because sometimes we stay attached, not because it's good, but because it's familiar. Familiar pain can feel safer than the unknown. Letting go means stepping into that unknown, trusting that your peace is worth more than your fear. There's a powerful shift that happens when you stop asking, "Why did this happen?" and start saying, "It happened, and I'm choosing to move forward anyway." That shift is where your strength begins to rebuild. Every time you resist the urge to check what he's doing, you're telling your heart, "We're moving on." Every time you catch yourself missing him, and you choose to do something kind for yourself instead, you're rewiring your attachment. Healing isn't instant, it's 1,000 small choices to stop giving energy to something that no longer gives back. Letting go completely doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you forget him or the moments that meant something to you. It means you stop letting those memories hold power over your peace. You can appreciate what it was without needing it to be what it used to be. You can love someone for what they brought to your life and still know that your journey continues without them. The love can stay, but the pain doesn't have to. That's what real emotional maturity looks like. The ability to release someone without resentment and to choose healing over holding. What most people don't realize is that halfway letting go keeps you stuck. It's like standing with one foot in the past and one foot in the future. You can't fully move forward, and you can't fully rest. You wake up thinking of him, you go to sleep replaying what ifs, and your soul never gets to exhale. You're not healing, you're hovering, waiting for something that may never come. But the moment you decide to close that emotional loop, something powerful happens. Your body starts to relax, your mind quiets down, the tension that came from trying to control what's gone begins to lift. That's the first taste of freedom. Letting him go completely isn't about bitterness or revenge. It's about self-respect. It's saying, "I deserve peace more than I deserve potential." It's trusting that your heart can mend, that your love isn't wasted, and that the version of you who kept giving deserves rest. When you release what's not yours anymore, you don't lose, you reclaim yourself, and that's the kind of healing that no one can take away from you. Because real healing doesn't come from getting them back. It comes from finally coming back to yourself. Love can make you do incredible things. It can make you patient, forgiving, hopeful. But sometimes that same love can keep you stuck in something that no longer serves you. We grow up believing that love alone is enough, that if you love someone deeply, you should keep fighting, keep waiting, keep trying to make it work. But that's one of the most painful lies we tell ourselves, because love, as beautiful as it is, isn't a reason to stay where your soul is suffocating. You can love someone and still recognize that being with them is costing you your peace. You can care for someone deeply and still understand that staying is no longer love, it's self-abandonment. When you stay in a situation that continually hurts you, drains you, or makes you question your worth, it's not because you're weak. It's because your heart still believes that love should conquer all. You keep hoping that the love you give will inspire them to change, that one day they'll meet you halfway. But real love isn't about potential, it's about presence. And if he's not showing up for you now, if he's not growing with you, if he's not treating your heart with care, then holding on to the idea of him is only keeping you from the peace you deserve. The truth is, you don't stop loving someone just because they're not right for you. You stop betraying yourself in the name of love. There's a huge difference. Loving someone doesn't mean you have to keep them in your life. It means you can wish them well, learn from what you shared, and still choose yourself. Because love that costs you your peace, your confidence, or your joy isn't love anymore. It's attachment mixed with hope. And hope without reciprocity turns into heartbreak. One of the most freeing realizations you'll ever have is that you can let go and still love. You can close the chapter and still be grateful for what it taught you. You can move on without needing to erase the good moments. You don't have to turn the story into something ugly to justify leaving it behind. You can simply say, I loved and I learned. That's enough. That's strength. Because letting go doesn't make your love invalid. It makes it complete. When you love someone who can't or won't meet you where you are, you start carrying both people's emotional weight. You give, you fix, you explain, and you forgive, until one day you wake up and realize you've lost sight of yourself in the process. You've become the one holding everything together while they remain unchanged. That's not partnership, that's self-sacrifice. And the most painful part is, you start mistaking endurance for loyalty. But love shouldn't be measured by how much pain you can endure. It should be measured by how much peace you create together. You don't have to prove your love by staying. You prove your love by being honest with yourself, by recognizing when something has reached its end. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up, it's growing up. It's realizing that love, when it's right, won't ask you to shrink, to settle, or to suffer endlessly. It will expand you. It will feel like freedom, not confusion. So when your heart tells you it still loves him, don't fight that. But also don't confuse love with a life sentence. You can love him and still choose to let him go. You can honor what you felt and still move forward. Because at the end of the day, love was never meant to cage you, it was meant to teach you. And when you learn that lesson, you finally understand. Letting go isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of self-respect. We spend so much time waiting for closure, as if it's some magical key someone else can hand us that will make all the pain make sense. You tell yourself that if he just explained, if he just apologized, if he just told you why things went the way they did, then you could finally move on. But what if that moment never comes? What if he never gives you the explanation you deserve? What if he does come back, but the words still don't fix what was broken? That's the truth. Most people never want to face. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you deciding you've had enough of waiting for peace to come from someone who already took it away. When you look for closure in another person, you're giving them power over your healing. You're saying, I can't move on until you make it right. But what if they never do? What if they don't see what they did the way you do? What if they've already made peace with a version of events that hurts you to even remember? You can spend months, even years, waiting for someone to validate your pain, but every moment you do, you're keeping your healing hostage to their awareness, and that's no way to live. Real closure happens when you stop needing their version of the truth and start accepting your own. Acceptance is where your strength begins to return. It's the moment you stop saying, "Why did this happen to me?" and start saying, "It happened, and I choose to grow from it." That's closure, not a text, not a call, not a conversation, but a quiet moment with yourself where you finally say, "I don't need their apology to forgive. I can forgive for my own peace." Forgiveness, in this sense, isn't about excusing them. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. It's recognizing that continuing to replay the story doesn't change the ending. It just keeps you stuck in the same chapter. So many people think closure means understanding everything that went wrong, but often it's realizing you never will and still choosing to be okay with that. Sometimes the people who hurt you can't give you clarity because they never had it themselves. They weren't honest, not because you didn't deserve honesty, but because they weren't capable of giving it. And when you finally accept that, you stop fighting a losing battle for emotional resolution. You stop needing them to see what you see. You stop waiting for something outside of you to fix what's inside. Closure isn't an event, it's a decision. It's that moment you look at yourself in the mirror and realize you're tired of giving your energy to confusion. It's when you stop checking if they've moved on and start focusing on how you can rebuild your own peace. It's when you stop rehearsing the past and start practicing self-compassion. The day you stop needing to hear "I'm sorry" is the day you start truly healing. Because the apology you've been waiting for is the one you give yourself for staying too long, for trying too hard, for forgetting your worth. The moment you choose yourself over closure, you step back into your power. You realize that the answers you were searching for won't change what happened, but your acceptance will change how it lives inside you. You no longer need him to close the door. You can close it yourself, gently, firmly, and finally. That's not weakness, that's strength. It's reclaiming your peace, your boundaries, your control. And one day, when your heart feels lighter and your mind feels quiet again, you'll realize the truth. You didn't need him to give you closure. You gave it to yourself the day you stopped waiting for him to. There's a reason why the past feels so magnetic, it's familiar. It holds all the moments that once felt safe, all the emotions that once made you feel alive. When you're trying to let someone go, your mind becomes addicted to those flashes of comfort. You remember their laugh, their touch, the way things used to be when everything felt right. You find yourself replaying those memories, thinking maybe if you hold onto them tightly enough, you can somehow recreate them. But the truth is, peace doesn't live in those memories anymore. Peace lives in the present, in the quiet space that opens up when you stop trying to relive what's already gone. The mind is tricky. It convinces you that the best version of love you'll ever have already happened, and that letting go means losing the only happiness you've known. But that's not true. The past isn't a home, it's a chapter, and every time you keep walking back into it, you're choosing to stay where the story has already ended. Peace feels distant only because you keep chasing something that no longer exists. The moment you start to understand that, something inside you begins to soften. You start realizing that missing someone doesn't mean you should be with them. It just means you're human. You're remembering something that mattered, but not everything that matters is meant to last. The more you heal, the more you start to see how peace and nostalgia often compete for your attention. Nostalgia will whisper, "Go back, maybe it'll feel the same." Peace will whisper, "Keep walking, it'll start to feel lighter." And every time you choose peace, even when it feels uncomfortable, you're teaching your heart to live again. Because peace doesn't have the adrenaline of heartbreak. It's quiet, gentle, steady. It doesn't demand your energy, it restores it. And that's why at first it feels strange. You've been so used to emotional chaos that calmness can almost feel empty. But give it time, and that calm will become your new normal. There's a day that comes in everyone's healing, where you look back at the person you were when it ended and you realize how far you've come. The tears that used to fall so easily start to slow. The ache that used to live in your chest begins to fade. And when you think of him, it no longer hurts, it just feels distant, like a story that taught you something important but no longer defines you. That's when peace begins to feel better than the past. That's when you realize you don't want the old version of love anymore. You want the version that feels mutual, safe, and whole. The beauty of peace is that it doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't chase, it doesn't beg, it doesn't need answers. It's the quiet confidence of knowing that what's meant for you won't require you to lose yourself to keep it. And the irony is, once you make peace your priority, love starts to find you differently. Not through chaos, not through confusion, but through calm. Because peace attracts people who are at peace with themselves, and that's the kind of love that lasts. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop craving what keeps hurting you. It's the brave act of saying, I can love what it was, but I no longer need to live there. When you finally make peace with that, your heart starts to expand again. You stop surviving and start living. You begin to see the world not through the lens of what you lost, but through what you're about to gain. Because peace, the kind that comes after pain, always feels better than the past. It's the reward for having the courage to finally let go. When you've spent so long holding onto someone, you start to forget what it feels like to hold onto yourself. You become so used to caring, fixing, proving, and trying, that your identity slowly starts to revolve around keeping that connection alive. You tell yourself it's love, but over time it begins to feel more like survival. You start shaping yourself around their moods, their needs, their distance, and in the process, you begin to disappear. Letting him go completely isn't just about losing him. It's about rediscovering you. It's about remembering the version of yourself that existed before the pain, before the waiting, before you made yourself smaller just to be enough for someone else. When you're in love, it's easy to lose sight of where you end and they begin. You pour so much of your energy into making the relationship work that you don't notice how much of yourself you've handed over. You compromise your boundaries, silence your voice, and start measuring your worth through their attention. You keep thinking, if I just try harder, maybe he'll see me, maybe he'll love me the way I love him, but love shouldn't feel like an audition. You were never meant to prove your worth, you were meant to share it. Letting go means finally ending that performance. It's choosing to stop being who you think he needs and start being who you actually are. The truth is, sometimes love ends because one person outgrows the version of themselves that tolerated being overlooked. And that's not a tragedy, it's transformation. When you stop chasing validation from someone else, you begin to rediscover your own. You remember the things that light you up, the passions you set aside, the joy that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. You start to rebuild a relationship with yourself, one based on honesty, kindness, and respect. You realize that the love you were trying to get from him was really the love you needed to give to yourself all along. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes when you start standing in your own space again. At first, it feels strange, almost lonely. You're so used to the emotional noise that silence feels foreign. But in that silence, you start to hear yourself again. You start to trust your instincts, your desires, your boundaries. You begin to see that your worth was never lost. It was just buried under all the ways you tried to make someone stay. The more you come back to yourself, the more peace you feel. And one day, you wake up and realize that you no longer need his presence to feel whole because you filled that space with your own love. Healing isn't about becoming who you were before him. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be, someone wiser, stronger, softer in all the right ways. You don't erase the version of you that loved him, you honor her, because she showed courage, she gave deeply, she felt fully. But now, it's time to give that same depth of love to yourself. The love that once went outward can finally flow inward. You're not losing love, you're redirecting it. Letting go completely isn't an ending, it's a return. It's coming home to yourself after wandering too far into someone else's story. It's realizing that you don't have to chase what's gone when you can create something beautiful within you. When you let go of him, you don't lose your heart, you find it. You start living from it again, freely, fully, unapologetically. And that's when you realize the truth. You never needed him to complete you. You just needed the courage to come back to yourself. What keeps most people holding on isn't love, it's fear. Fear of the emptiness that follows, fear of being alone. Fear that maybe without him, life won't feel as full, as exciting, as meaningful. But the truth is that fear is an illusion. It's your mind trying to convince you that pain is safer than possibility. You're not actually afraid of losing him. You're afraid of meeting yourself without him. Because somewhere along the way, you built your world around someone else's presence. You made their love the oxygen you breathed, and now that it's gone, it feels like you can't survive without it. But you can, you always could. Freedom begins the moment you realize that your heart doesn't need to stay trapped in the same story just because it's familiar. When a relationship ends, there's a space that opens up, a silence, a gap, a stretch of time where everything feels uncertain. That space is terrifying because it's empty at first. You've spent so long filling your days with thoughts of him, with messages, with the rhythm of being connected. Now there's just you, and that's when the real work begins, the work of learning how to sit in that emptiness without trying to escape it. Because that space isn't punishment, it's potential. It's the part of healing where you start to remember who you are without the weight of trying to be enough for someone else. It's the beginning of freedom. Freedom isn't the absence of missing him. It's the moment you stop letting that longing control you. You might still think of him, still wonder how he's doing, still feel a wave of sadness some days, but it no longer owns you. It no longer dictates your choices. You can feel the emotion without letting it pull you back into the past. That's what emotional freedom looks like. It's not that you stop caring, it's that you stop suffering. You stop fighting reality, you stop negotiating with yourself about what could have been. You simply say, it's over, and let that truth become the doorway to your peace. Once fear stops driving your decisions, everything starts to shift. You begin to see that you weren't actually losing something. You were being released from something that was keeping you small. You start to notice how much lighter you feel when you're not constantly waiting for messages, reading mixed signals, or explaining your worth. You feel the difference between chasing love and being at peace with yourself. You start to breathe again, not the shallow, anxious breaths you took when you were holding on, but deep, calm, steady ones. You feel alive in your own company. You feel proud of your strength. That's the kind of freedom that can't be taken from you once you find it. Letting go completely is an act of faith. It's trusting that whatever is meant for you will never require you to lose yourself to keep it. It's believing that the universe isn't punishing you, it's preparing you. The emptiness you fear is the very space where new love, new peace, and new purpose will grow. But that can only happen when you stop clinging to what's already left. Freedom begins where fear ends, and fear ends the moment you realize you're strong enough to stand alone. The truth is, you were never meant to live in emotional captivity. You were meant to expand, to evolve, to love without losing yourself in the process. So when you finally let him go, not half-heartedly, not conditionally, but fully, you begin to rise. You start to feel the lightness of your own spirit again. You rediscover your laughter, your curiosity, your confidence. And in that moment, you understand something powerful. Letting go wasn't about losing him. It was about finding the part of you that was always meant to be free. Letting him go completely isn't about forgetting him. It's about remembering yourself. It's about choosing peace over pain, freedom over fear, and self-respect over attachment. One day, you'll look back and realize that releasing him wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of your healing. Because when you stop holding on to what weighs you down, you don't lose anything. You finally make space for the life, the love, and the peace you were always meant to have.